Thank you very much for joining us and for joining us through all the Graylog Go sessions here. My name's Seth Goldhammer, Head of Product Management here at Graylog. Very excited to be joined by Jason Shropshire, the Chief Operating Officer for Infusion Points. Jason, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us a little bit more about your role at Infusion Points.
Yeah, hey Seth, it's great to be back at Graylog Go. We were here last year for the first time. It's really an honor to be back and talking to the great folks at Graylog and the users of Graylog. I'm Jason Shropshire, Chief Operating Officer. I've been at Infusion Points for 15 of its 17 years now. Infusion Points is all about really complex, intricate compliance frameworks that our customers are trying to comply with. While having the kind of the ultimate duties of securing our nation's secrets. We do a lot of federal work around FedRAMP High environments and Department of Defense environments that have those really, really restrictive security requirements. And we've been using Graylog in some of our product offerings. So we really started off doing advisory, and that's still our ethos, is around advising clients and how to meet those requirements, helping them build those types of programs. But over the years, we've been getting much more sophisticated with our capabilities, and that includes engineering capabilities, helping customers deploy, within Amazon Web Services as one of our primary partners, and then helping to come up with sort of an opinionated framework that we could bring to a new customer, right? Who maybe wants a lot more assistance with implementing these frameworks, implementing this type of security, but doing it in a way that is fast, right? That gets them to their desired outcomes of selling into the government and into these complex environments very quickly. So really, that's what we've been doing, and we chose Graylog some time ago, and we've been off to the races ever since.
That's great. And the topic today is to dig into really how we can leverage Gen AI to enrich Graylog alerts. But before we jump into that topic, it may make sense if you could talk a little bit about how is Infusion Points, how have you been using Graylog, and tell us a little bit about your maybe the analyst workflow prior to using anything along with Gen AI.
Yeah, so looking at the AWS ecosystem, we realized that nothing really existed like a SIEM. We try to stay cloud native where we can, but there really wasn't a great story around SIEM functionality, the way that these frameworks think of SIEM environments. So we really look for a strong partner, and we like the open source ethos, behind Graylog really well. So that was about 4.5 years ago now, I think, that we selected Graylog and started down the partner path with you folks. And we've been looking at ways of deploying it within AWS ever since, and then also enabling our security operations center and our analysts, to use Graylog, in the process of doing our managed detection and response services for our customers. So that workflow. Because we do provide eyes on glass, it's a little bit different than some takes on SOC these days, where we provide some software and that software sends alerts to your people. We actually provide eyes on glass operations capability from our SOC in North Carolina, where we have folks there 24/7. So really, our analyst workflow, looks like events coming in. We have some enrichment going on. We use lookup tables within Graylog and threat feeds from ThreatFox. We've most of this work that we did in engineering was on Graylog operations, before the security product came around. So we haven't honestly integrated the security piece yet. But we had sort of built those components on in terms of threat feeds that we could add, and enrichment that we could do there locally. But it is very time intensive, right? And I think the biggest thing we've identified is the need to identify those efficiencies and to um, to get those realized.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. As I said, the security operation workflow is all about efficiency. When traditionally, alert to triage an alert is going to take you 10 to 15 minutes. To understand what is the alert, what is the criteria of this alert, why did it fire, information about the environment, etc. And if you're getting hundreds of alerts, you can do the math, right? It doesn't take complicated math to understand that quickly becomes pretty imbalanced. So where did you see AI becoming an opportunity to help you in terms of that triage and investigation process?
Yeah, I mean, from the minute a couple of years ago, when we saw OpenAI for the first time and what it could do with ChatGPT and LLMs, we were fascinated and we knew that it was going to change everything. And indeed, I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg with it. First, we were using it for exploratory kind of things like marketing and things that were easily public and that didn't really matter as much. But obviously, we were thinking from the start about ways that how is this going to impact us and what we do? How can we leverage it to gain efficiencies and to provide better service for customers? I think the biggest thing that we looked at the processes that our analysts go through around looking up and enriching the things that you have to do that you don't necessarily think about every time, or but they become sort of routine. So we started tracking what those things were, some of the lookups or the Googling that you would do for research of when you're trying to triage an alert and understand. And then also we were looking at the automation that we do within an AWS environment and the data that we have for context around these environments that we're deploying. Right, we have a lot of good information that's just previously hasn't been exposed or available to enrich the alert content that we're getting. So our initial idea, and because we are on AWS, we looked at Bedrock pretty much immediately, especially in the commercial environments. There's a lot more capability there and more LLMs that are available there than our Gov deployments currently. But we know that that stuff's going to make its way into GovCloud. So we go ahead and start building and researching, what all is possible in the commercial environment. But things like pulling down the known exploited vulnerability list from CISA, right, was one area that we thought, hey, we could do some lookups against the KEV, or we could do some lookups against MITRE ATT&CK, attack framework. So we pulled that data in to knowledge bases in Bedrock, trained LLMs on it, right, as sort of the first public agents that we looked at. Like, what's the public data that we can train an LLM against, and then start asking it questions about alerts that we're seeing that come in. And we're doing this live, considering that we would have Bedrock and these agents available, live in our environments. And Chad Spears, our SOC director, is going to be demonstrating some of this in his session. But it was interesting to see that what we could do, what we could come up with.
As you looked at how you could scale this up, maybe more programmatically within your workflow, were there hiccups that you kind of experienced along the way, or just different experiences with one LM versus a different LM, and just the way?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, a lot of the marketing early experiments that we were doing was against the OpenAI APIs. So we were very much used to the OpenAI LLMs, and when we switched to Bedrock, there's a whole different set of LLMs that become available. The ones from Anthropic, for example, were available. Obviously, Amazon's LLMs were there. and then others. Llama is one that I think is on the right path, certainly. So all of them were very interesting to us in different ways, right? Because they have fundamentally different training data sets themselves, and different capabilities there. So we did see some big differences between them, and just swapping an LLM and an agent could have drastic differences in what we saw. So I mean, I think that getting fundamentally just understanding the LLMs and what's behind them, what they're intended for, I think that's been a big hurdle, so to speak. And then overall, I think organizationally, getting everyone to think in AI modalities and just thinking toward what's possible, I think was just a training issue, that we came up against. So we had all kinds of brown bag sessions, and just we met with AWS multiple times. I was trying to show the work that I had done on workflows for marketing that I was working on, just to disseminate knowledge within the organization of like, let's start thinking in new ways about the work that we do.
Sure. No, that makes a ton of sense. And are you able now to take a look at, kind of a comparison between how, your workflow prior to leveraging AI in any way versus now? And is that just a factor of time and reduction of time? Or are you looking at kind of comprehensiveness of responses to your customers, or other ways to kind of track success?
Yeah, I mean, has a shift fundamentally happened yet to the way we work? Probably not, but it's coming. I mean, and we feel like we're within closing distance of some early wins around AI. I think the biggest one is enriching the data that's available to our tier one analysts, and our goal is to get our tier one folks moved up to tier two, right? And really, I think we're within a striking distance of not even really needing a tier one capability anymore. Like, we're going to need more people than we did before, right? But it's because we could do more for more customers than we ever have been able to before, and we're providing them more value, more capability per our headcount or per cost, than we were able to before. So I mean, to me, that's really exciting, to be able to provide the same level of service that we've been able to up until now, but at more value to the customer, is going to be just that much better for all the stakeholders involved. But yeah, I mean, I think there are a ton of opportunities, and we've only seen those initial use cases. I'm really excited about being able to build these capabilities and train LLMs within our customers' spaces to understand more context about that customer specific deployment, so that we can understand impacts from an alert, like what other resources are in this AWS account that this alert could impact. What other like this TTP is involved with this particular alert. Like, what does that mean from a standpoint of which threat actors do we need to be looking out for? Like, what other TTPs do they use? All of a sudden, that information could be available right at our fingertips of our analysts, and on the dashboarding that we do for our customers.
Absolutely. I should add, if you have questions for Jason or for myself, please enter them into the chat. We'll be answering questions during the discussion, and we'll be online available to answer questions afterwards as well. So by all means, while we can't necessarily answer questions live, since we're not live, we can answer questions in the chat live for you, for anything on that Jason or I are discussing in today's fireside chat. So you started to touch a little bit on what's next. So you're looking at how you really reduce the human element in tier one, move a lot of the, I like to say, our advanced human cognitive powers are reserved for kind of the higher kind of escalated sets of of escalations that you're performing within the SOC. And what else, I guess, do you see kind of next steps for how you could leverage Gen AI where you're able to improve upon some of the earlier successes you're seeing?
Yeah, I think there's a couple areas. I think firstly, it's about taking the things that we're exposing to our analysts, right, and then feeling a level of comfort where we can expose those to our customers as well, right. So that's that dashboarding piece that I was talking about. I think that that's one way that we can kind of um, extend what we're doing, and then the other is seeing a transition in our SOC personnel where they've developed a level of trust in the tools that they have that we're making available. Because I think if anything in AI, I mean, as much in the general public as there is within teams like ours, there's that trust issue. Like how much can I trust what I'm being told or what this data that I'm getting back? Do I have what I need to understand? Is this a hallucination or not? Are the proper guardrails in place here? And I think that from what I'm seeing in industry, I think that there's a good job being done to ultimately help us get there to where there is that level of trust. But I would love to see our analysts get to this point where they don't see AI as a threat or as untrustworthy, but more of as just a tool, right? That they can use to make themselves better, that they can use to provide a better level of service, and that's the sort of harmony, that I would love to be able to get to ultimately with the capabilities that we're building. I think it's going to happen. It's just going to take some time and dedication to make it happen, and continue training and continued use of the tools. I think the more that folks get used to using these new tools in new ways and seeing how it can help, it's going to help with adoption.
That element of trust, I think that's really interesting that you bring that up, because the AIs can hallucinate. I mean, we've fed, as we've been experimenting with how we could leverage Gen AI and productize that inside of Graylog. We've seen situations when the prompt is maybe too generalized. We've seen responses come back where the ChatGPT or other models made up IP addresses, just added information that wasn't included in the evidence. And so as you're asking questions, trying to connect these tactics with maybe other known attack tactics, or trying to match it to known campaigns, I'm assuming there still needs to be a level of awareness on the analyst side of, hey, wait, this doesn't look quite right. Maybe I should run this again, or maybe I should ask this in a different way. How are you accounting for that in your operational workflow? What type of feedback do you receive from your analysts in that regard?
I think critically, making it fully transparent that a suggestion or any kind of feedback that we're providing to an analyst is transparently AI, right? And making sure that that's called out is fundamental. That's like table stakes. And then one thing that we've done as well is run against a few different models, right? To sort of provide different perspectives, among a particular prompt, and we've seen benefit that way as well. But ultimately, I think making sure that it's understood that it's up to the human to use this as a tool, right? Among many, and we can't just go off of what's there in what's being generated. I think that's critical ultimately. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really spot on to point out. I won't point fingers. There was a vendor a few years ago that was marketing themselves as helping to build the, essentially the humanless SOC, that it was going to be, completely automated SOC. And I personally have never felt that's even the goal, the objective is not to remove the human, from the security operation. It's to, I think you've made the point clear. It's a tool. How do we enable the right tools to present the right information in the right way so that the human can ultimately make, the best decision with that information? And AI, that's how we've approached it from, Graylog's perspective, as we're looking to productize these tools, is how do we kind of plug in the right tool at the right place in the workflow to, again, to enable the human, to make sure the human is able to have the right information available, make really good decisions with that information.
Yeah, so you bring me to my next point, and I've been dying to ask you. When we first met to talk about this session, I heard some really exciting things that you had raised in the roadmap. That was our first time hearing of it, and we shared with each other a little bit about our perspectives on how we're using some of the technologies available. I think we're both using Bedrock to some degree, if I remember right.
That's right.
But yeah, it was but the difference in approach I thought was noteworthy, and I was wondering what you could share with us about what Graylog is doing currently in the roadmap with AI.
Yeah, I'd love to. Appreciate the question. What's interesting, we're introducing an AI feature in 6.1, but we've been using Gen AI for a lot longer than just in this release. In fact, the original vision of the remediation steps, which you see in Graylog 6.0, that's in our event definitions that we're providing in our Spotlight content with a security license. These event definitions include remediation steps, essentially, a bit more of that context of what did this alarm look for and how should you investigate it? How would you rule this out as a false positive versus a true positive? How would you contain this if it is a true positive, et cetera? Well, originally that was going to be a prompt and have that dynamically provided, add some information about the environment, information about the alert, information about some variables from the alert, like the user, the host, et cetera. And what we found is we had a couple issues with that particular approach at that time. One was the inconsistency of the responses. And if you think about a security operations, I have one analyst picking up an alert and a different analyst picking up the same alert, but for maybe a different customer, just a different place in the environment. They can't have two different ways they're going to respond to that alert. That inconsistency just didn't seem like it aligned to the, how we wanted to help enable customers. And the second was, going, not even just AI hallucination. It was just sometimes the response just came back really generic. It was, hey, you should look at logs. Well, yeah, that's why they have Graylog. Of course, they should go look at logs. So what we found was, for 6.0 to really get out the value we wanted with the remediation steps, we found a bit of a hybrid approach. So our team, our content engineering team, they use ChatGPT, or actually, I don't even know what model they're using now. They use Gen AI to build sort of the scaffolding for that remediation step. But you now have a human who knows why that content was created, has worked in a SOC previously to help, going back to that trust issue. Does this look right? Is this kind of on the right steps? Is it specific enough? Would this truly help me if I was an analyst? And if not, add some of that additional context. So we are baking in those responses. They're not dynamic. They're just hard-coded into our event definitions. The trade-off is, so now going to 6.1, we're introducing a feature called investigation summary. So now we are using Gen AI, going through, as you mentioned, with AWS Bedrock. It just gave us an opportunity to, we could change, to different models. We could experiment with prompts much more fluidly using AWS Bedrock, where we can now take all the evidence in an investigation and through a prompt we've developed, essentially ask ask through the prompt, hey, could you summarize this information? Could you find alignment with minor attack tactics? What would you do next? And so in the event, I have very explicit instructions how to investigate this event. in the investigation, I'm now getting a dynamic opportunity to see what to do next based on all of the evidence I've added to the investigation. And if anything, the incident response report, I didn't ask you about this. When I've talked to analysts, usually the part what they love about their job is investigating, finding, some threat actor and putting a stop to it. What they don't like about their job is writing an incident response report. Who likes writing a report at the end of the day? And so if we can save you a few hours of writing that report, because we've built out kind of the summarization and the impact analysis and the event analysis, and maybe now there's 20% that you need to do to for make sure that this is suitable to your stakeholders. At least we've saved you a couple hours of time. So that's the what you'll see in 6.1 is that is use of Gen AI for that investigative response process, and that's where we see a lot of potential value with a lot of the constraints, as you mentioned, making sure that we are getting responses back that are helpful, that there isn't hallucination. We've experimented a lot with the prompt that we're sending. We even found at times the order of the events that we're providing in the prompt could change dramatically how the response was then analyzed and returned back in the summarization that we were provided. So just little things like that we've learned through the process.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of the same things, but I love the approach of taking and using AI offline in an environment, right, to create a data set that could then be used and ported around to your different customers. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense to develop the content that you're including in content packs. That really makes a ton of sense. But then also, being willing to experiment and step out into the live, let's see what can be accomplished. Is a great thing as well. So, I mean, as far as challenges go, like what sort of issues did you bump up against as you did this? I mean, it sounds similar to our journey.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of similarities. I think a lot of the pain for us wasn't the infrastructure to take in the data, put that into kind of a package that we could send into Bedrock, getting that into a model. That was the easy part for us. The where we spent probably the most time was on prompt engineering. And I know that sounds funny. A lot of us on the side are using ChatGPT or other free tools in having kind of lots of conversations. But when you wanted to, for our purposes, right, we're trying to productize this where it's got to work more consistently, better than not. And so it took us and we're still experimenting with, the prompt. How can we continue to improve this so that we're getting consistency in the value of the responses that are coming back? Or if anything, let's say I have only 3 pieces of evidence in investigation. Can the response come back, say, hey, I don't have enough information? Because these Gen AI tools, they want to give you a response. They want to answer you. Yeah. And this is where
they're sort of biased toward action, right?
Absolutely. And so where we see the most opportunity for hallucination is when you just aren't giving it enough information. And so it just starts making up information to help create the content it wants to provide back to you. And so trying to use, the prompt, hey, if you don't have enough information, just tell me. Don't try to make anything up. And so we've spent a lot of time on that side of the process, really with the prompt itself, and less so, you would think a lot of our experimentation is on what models and, how do we get the information and kind of in the right way into the models, but no, it was really on the prompt itself.
Temperature settings and when we were using Bedrock agents, you have an opportunity with the agent to provide personality. So that's some of what we tried to set there. And part of our experimentation too was actually a chat interface that customers could use. We call it Alto. But that chat interface could do things like tell you, among your scan information, like explain this vulnerability to me, or tell me, how many hosts where we have this vulnerability, things like that. And yeah, I mean, we saw the same issue with relying on it live, and getting that consistency, or getting it to just not say anything if it didn't know. Temperature setting helps some, but the different LLMs are significantly different in the way that they handle that.
Yeah. So you will see if you end up using that feature for AI summarization in the investigation part of our product, you'll see a feedback that you can provide. Was this response, was it helpful? Was it not?
Yeah.
We'll capture those from our customers who are leveraging that, so that we can evaluate. Is the prompt on the right track? Because we can only test so much. In fact, that was another interesting experimentation for us. You have a bit of an advantage where you're working with customers with real data. We can't use our Graylog cloud customers' data just to feed into an LLM. That's not something we can do. So we needed to generate data, and one of the ways we generated data was using, researching true attack campaigns and building logs off of those specific exploits and tactics, and not giving it the entire campaign. So maybe it's an 8-step campaign. We give it, logs for exploits for, steps 3, 6, 7, that kind of thing. And then see how well could Gen AI help connect those dots? Yeah, these are connected in these ways. These are these tactics in minor.
Right.
So we built, a bit of an apparatus around how to create these attacks and, realistic campaigns, so that we would have realistic data that we're feeding into these investigations.
So did you gain any specific insight into the different LLMs, especially with the live work that you did?
We have. I mean, we've, similar to, I think, we've landed on the moment we're using Llama 3. We found that it's in fact, there was an interesting article recently that came out around how Llama 3 has really become the model for developers. That developers seem to appreciate how it's been built. In a lot of the tools to enable Llama for for their purposes, and so we have found those advantages as well. Using AWS Bedrock gives us that opportunity of, we're not wedded to anything. We haven't developed so specifically to Llama 3 that we would have to reverse engineer our work to get to use a new model. So it gives us an opportunity, our architecture team and our analyst experience team, we can continue to play around with other models, and we can always kind of leapfrog, if you will, behind the scenes without a customer having to do anything on their side.
Awesome. Yeah. We had similar results. I mean, I found that Anthropic did pretty well with summarization of marketing type content. Their LLMs did well with that, but not so well at technical, technical understanding. Obviously, wasn't part of their training data, and what they're designed for. So, well, I mean, what do you see as next? Beyond 6.1.
Yeah, there's a few different places. If you think about kind of the different points of log management, analysis, or security event information management, data collection. Well, we're looking at just the way we parse data. Can we use Gen AI to help us identify, hey, that's a username, that's a host name? Are the ways that we can leverage Gen AI that even if we've never seen an application before, we can build at least a stopgap parser before maybe a content team can truly build out more of the classification and maybe parse more other fields more specifically. So that's one area that we're looking at that we think there's a lot of opportunity with Gen AI. Another is just in, if you look at a dashboard, have Gen AI, what should this dashboard tell me? What should I be looking at? If
right.
this spiky thing here looks bad. Is it bad? I don't know.
Right.
So I think there's opportunities there to just help people comprehend, what is the information that is being collected and analyzed, assessed by the tool. So those are other areas we're looking at that aren't security specific. What I like about the security specific side, and you can kind of hear this in what we did in 6.0 and 6.1 that we'll continue to improve on, is I think if you think about the traditional SOAR implementation, secure SOAR, for those who aren't familiar, security, automation, orchestration, and response. And it really emphasized the need to build these playbooks where you had to have a lot of expertise on, well, what is it that you're investigating? What does your environment look like? So it
was a big integration challenge to get SOAR up and operational. Yep.
And we see an opportunity to really, instead of, if you think about what is SOAR at the end of the day trying to enable, is trying to enable scale. How can I do more? How can I cover more ground, if you will, with the team that I have?
Yep.
And so I think what we're seeing in the market, it's less and less emphasis on, well, how many playbooks do you have? How many API integrations do you have? It's going to be more around, how do you just enable my team to be more effective? And that's why we're building remediation steps the way we are with the investigation summary. And there's more that we can do in that workflow to just help better enable the analyst to be more effective without having to, have a library of playbooks that you've got to maintain and manage, which becomes very unmanageable very, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you call that out. Like, adapting to a new situation or a new deployment, in real time is a great thing to be able to do, and to be able to just speed up, the process of. I mean, I think that I find myself almost weekly in my thinking of AI use cases. I struggle to sort of recenter back to thinking about, hey, is this a task that I could use AI to complete? And when it really dawned on me the power was when I was looking into something I thought there's no way that AI is going to be able to help with this. And it was we were trying to come up with a graph API integration with Burp Suite to pull vulnerability information and to be able to launch a scan and things like that. And I was able to come up with a working prototype with Python and GraphQL, very quickly. And that's when I realized the power of it. And then I think our team members at Infusion Points have seen that, hey, there's all these engineering, deployment, and integration steps in what we do that can be sped up, dramatically and greatly if we have that mindset. So building that into it to products, so that there's not those big integration timelines and deployment timelines. You've got tools to help short circuit that process and speed it up and make it happen. I mean, that's all. More's the better.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. With only a couple minutes left, I'm just curious. We've given people options here if they want to look at how they can really leverage AI to enrich their alerts. They can use Infusion Points. You provide a managed service using Graylog. They have some product features that are coming out with Graylog. If someone was looking to build this on their own, maybe on top of Graylog Open, any last points, any advice you would give to that person?
Well, I think you've got to get beyond the product mindset, right? You have to be kind of you can't be a implementer of Graylog and OpenSearch. You have to understand the developer mindset, right? And it's not too far of a leap these days. It really isn't. It's a matter of knowing the data you have, how to query it, and how to do something with it. How to use the Bedrock API, right, to get back a response. And I went from using ChatGPT to using the OpenAI API like really quickly. It took me about half a day to get the fundamentals. And the same thing with Bedrock. So you've got to make that transition, I think, or have folks there with you that that can do that. But once you have that in your tool set, you could do a lot of different things if you have the time. But if you don't have the time, that's when you go with what you folks have done, or if you want to do something more bespoke than that, come to us and we can show you what we've done with Graylog and AI implementations.
Well, it's been a great conversation, Jason. Really appreciate your time and joining us at Graylog Go. Provide a lot of the insights that you've learned through, in some cases, through some pain, and hopefully a lot of benefits that have now come out of that as a result. So thank you. And as we mentioned, if you do have questions, or you want to ask Jason any questions, please enter them into the chat. We'll get to them as much as we can. And hope that everyone enjoyed not only this session, but enjoys all of the sessions here at Graylog Go this week. So thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.